Forgot step one, install Apple Developer Tools or Xcode from your installed DVDs first. Okay, let's get started. Hey there, this is Jeff, and I am here today to do a little demo on installing Macports, and it's a package manager for OS X to help you install the package manager for help you managing, Apache, PHP, MySQL binaries, that kind of thing. So here we'll jump in. I'm running the installer. This part of it will install just like any old OS X program, so there's nothing real special here. We'll get more into the kind of configuration files for Apache and PHP and MySQL here in a few minutes, but it starts off easy enough. And this will just run for a moment, but the package manager is very common if you're using a Linux server. So if you're on a Debian server, or Ubuntu, you'll be running apt-get to install your binaries usually. And then sometimes if you're running something like Red Hat or CentOS, you use the Yum package manager. It just helps you do installation of these things. Why? Well, if you have to install PHP, you'll find that you need to install 12 other things or more to run it, and you get all these dependencies, and it manages these dependencies for you, so it really is a very nice thing. To get started here, we'll go over to our terminal window and just go ahead and run self-update. So port is for Macports. It's our command to run the program. We need to run it as root, so that's why I'm using sudo. And we'll find that our ports are already all good to go. And we want to do upgrade the outdated packages. And go ahead and do that as well. If I can get this typed correctly, and okay, it's basically saying here that there isn't anything out of date. So at this point, we're ready to get started. So apt-get again would be what we would use on Debian Linux, and it's very similar kinds of commands. It's not going to work here on OS X, but the port command is very similar. So we're going to get into installing PHP. I'm going to use version 5.2 here. It could be, you can just do PHP 5. Which would probably give you PHP 5.3. Since I'm doing some Drupal development, not every single Drupal module is, as far as I know, is running nicely with PHP 5.3. So Drupal core is, and major modules like views are, but some of the other ones aren't. So I'm going to stick with 5.2 just because it's going to save some headaches. And here, it's computing the dependencies. This is what I was talking about before with that. So we're installing PHP, Apache, MySQL, the pair, PHP package manager, PHP 5, APC. APC is well, it's kind of like in Java, they have a bytecode compiler. It lets you run PHP as compiled code instead of interpreted code. And it just basically speeds things up for you real nicely. So it's worth putting on there if you can. And then the upload progress extension will also give you a nice progress bar. And since I'm doing Drupal development for your uploads, it's nice to have that progress bar. So here, this is going to take a long time. This is going to take over an hour, I think. So we'll be back with you shortly. Okay, after everything's done, configuring, installing, and all that good stuff, we wind up with this, and it's giving us some hints about our PHP installation that we need to do to make things work nicely. And first and foremost is to activate the PHP 5 module. And so this is how we do it. We move into the Apache 2 modules directory, and we run this apxs command to activate PHP 5. So we'll just do a good old-fashioned Macintosh copy and paste here and move into that directory, and then we'll run this command to activate PHP 5. Same thing, copy paste. We'll need to run this as sudo I believe. So we'll add that to the beginning and put in the password. We're good to go. Okay, the next thing is about this extension directory in our php.ini file. Is going to prevent, it's telling us it's going to prevent PHP from working properly. So what we need to do is comment out or delete this line. However, at this point, right in our install, we probably don't even have a php.ini file yet. So what we're going to need to do is copy one of the provided PHP configuration files over to php.ini, and that's what we'll do here in a second. Okay, we'll go ahead and copy over the php.ini- distribution file that they provide as a default, and then we can kind of customize it to our needs. So let's just go ahead and copy this to php.ini in the same directory. Then after that, we'll edit the file and tweak it a bit to make it work as we need it to. And I need a sudo in front of that because this is a root privileged directory. Okay, so that's our command. Okay, we're going to edit this file now. So I just ran sudo emacs php.ini in the proper directory, and I'm looking for this extension _dir directive, which I'm just going to comment out. We got this nice little note from our Macports package manager that we needed to do so. And then while I'm here, I'm going to look at a couple other things. I'm going to fumble around here for a second to look for my resource limits section. Let's see, where did that go? Well, while I look for that, sometimes php.ini files will ship with a 8 megabyte limit, which if you're running something like a WordPress or Drupal, it just isn't enough. So I like to give it, especially for development, plenty of memory. So set it up at maybe 128, and I have my max execution time up to in case I'm doing some like database import PHP scripts or something like that that need more time. This is not necessarily what you'd want in a production environment, but for development, it seems to work well. And then while we're in here, we might look for our APC. Oh, no, I believe APC got set into a different file. So let's go ahead and save the file with Emacs. That's Control X, Control S. And then let's look at our MySQL socket settings, which we will need as well. So I'll just kind of do Control S and search for MySQL here. And there we go. And I look for the socket settings, and I have it here at opt local var run MySQL 5 mysqld.sock. Okay, so that's what our socket file is for MySQL, and I want to set it the same for MySQLi. And there it is, MySQLi. And so now I don't believe these files and directories exist yet, so I'm going to have to, let's see, yeah, no such file or directory, so I'm going to have to go ahead and create those. And so I'll just move over into the opt local var directory. I don't think run exists yet either, so right, it doesn't. So I'll go ahead and make that directory. And so that'll be sudo mkdir run. And see if I can get away with creating both directories at the same time here. That doesn't look like it. I'll have to do them one at a time. I can't remember offhand how to do make it create all the directories in the path that you specify. So I'll create the run directory, and then we'll move into the run directory and create the MySQL directory, or MySQL 5 it was. There we go. And then should be able to run the touch command again too. Okay, a little housekeeping here. There's a few commands that I didn't get recorded in the right order, so I'm going to refer you to the blog post for that. And those include the touch command for the MySQL socket file, making a symbolic link to the new Apache control binary, and the php.info file in the htdocs folder. Those will all be in the show notes. You'll need those to proceed. All right, let's give this a try, see if we can get this up and running. So we'll restart Apache and move over to our browser and localhost. Whoops. So Apache is running. Let's see if our info.php file is working. And Apache isn't interpreting the PHP here. So let's fix that. So we're editing the http.conf file and adding this PHP type to it. That should help. And we can restart Apache again, and this time hopefully we're in business, and we are. You can see PHP is now up and running. And you can even see we've got our APC extensions installed, a whole mess of stuff. Whoops. But now we have PHP up and running, so the next thing to do will be to go ahead and get MySQL working well with PHP, and then we'll be in business. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try to get MySQL up and running. I just ran the MySQL command for installing the default databases, and I'm going to look at my .profile shell configuration, and you can see that I have MySQL start and MySQL stop in here. You might want to add those two, make things a little easier. So I'm going to run MySQL start, and it's going to start it up, and we're going to see here if we're lucky enough for it to get, and no, we're not. It ended. So what happened? This is actually turning out to be a permissions problem. So let's go ahead and take care of this as well. And I'm logged in as root sudo-s. And so I don't have to do sudo each time. And I can see that this directory does not needs to be owned by MySQL 5. I had already fixed it here, but for purposes of the screencast, I'm kind of doing it again. So I'm changing the owner to the _MySQL file and the MySQL user, and the same thing with the socket file. Both of these are now as the MySQL user as the owner, so that we can go ahead and get this to run properly. So I reran MySQL start to get it up and running, and so MySQL is now running, and I'm just going to go ahead and move into my htdocs directory and create a file called db.php. I just went over to the PHP manual and got a little bit of code just to test a database connection. So this is all here, and I haven't really set up any users yet, so I'm just going to go in and do MySQL as root. I haven't even set the root password yet, which is very insecure. It's not something you'd want to do in production or even maybe even development, but for purposes of this screencast, I'm just going to leave the database out. And so I'll go ahead and save this file. It will give us an error if there's a problem. So just go ahead and change this to db.php as my file to run, and nothing, which is actually the correct result if there's not an error. So maybe I'll just go ahead and add a little else to this to print out a success message if there are no errors. And go ahead and save this. And I'm going to check my PHP syntax. Looks like it's okay. So if I run this again now, I got a success message. So we should be good to go. PHP, MySQL with Macports and Apache all set up